India's New Right. This is a new book by Abhijit Majumder, senior editor, consulting editor with CNN News 18 and founder and editor of Earshot. This we have known for some time now that Indian society or something about it has been changing over the past decade, especially since Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to the center stage, ruling from the center, this vast and varied country of India. Was that a catalyst which brought about this change? What exact section of the demography are we referring to when we say India's new right? We'll know that from our guest today, Abhijit Majumder. Welcome, Abhijit.
Thank you, Surajit.
As I said, Abhijit, there has been some time that people have realized that there is a new section in the Indian population, a very vocal section that thinks perhaps differently from the mainstream media. Was that material enough to write a whole book on it?
No, it's not about a section thinking differently from left wing media. It's about the profound changes that we have seen socially, politically, in terms of the whole religious landscape of Bharat, in terms of economic thought, across every section of life in India, if we may say, and the biggest reflection of it has been in politics. But this book tries to capture that change, that surge of nationalism, that new nationalism that has arrived, swept away a lot of things that we were used to, we grew up with, and has shifted the Overton window quite a bit not just in public discourse, but in politics and everywhere. So I thought that there was to capture this moment of the nation's life, we needed a book.
Okay.
And I have tried to capture it through the eyes of a few of its protagonists.
All right.
Many of them are prominent faces, prominent names, names that you keep encountering in the social media or media, and many of them interviewed for the book. There are about more than 50 interviews that I've done, going to places across India, and this book looks at the new phenomenon through their eyes.
Okay. So you had enough material to fill 471 pages. Maybe.
I have enough material to fill about 40,000 pages.
Okay. It's an abridged version of that.
It's a very, very abridged version of that, because India's new right is not a monolith. It's not one sort of uniform.
That is what I was coming to. India's new right. Are they right-wing people, so to speak, from a Western lexicon? Right-wing? Are these people like that?
No, India does not have a right wing in the Western sense.
Right.
The Western conservative movement, the conservative beliefs, right-wing beliefs are very different. Many of them, some of them, of course, sort of, very strong patriotic instincts, etc., of course, are similar to Western right. But India's right is very, very different in terms of economic thought.
Not racist, not xenophobic.
Because the conservatism in India is, the traditions of India are not xenophobic or bigoted or anything. India is, it's a cliche now to talk about that, but India, the kind of mind-boggling diversity that India functions with as one nation is in itself the biggest proof that there is no xenophobia as such.
Right.
Having said that, it doesn't mean that we welcome, and this movement also tells you that there have been tremendous amount of resistance to forces that have tried to demolish this land, demolish its culture, completely wipe out the people and their belief systems. That, just because one is multicultural, tolerant, doesn't mean that you kill your own instincts to survive.
Right. And even from an economic point of view, they are not like free market advocates and things like that, right? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I mean, within the right, there are so many, strands of economic thought. You have, of course, the laissez-faire, free market people. Then you have people who are protectionist, who advocate like Gurumurthy ji, self-dependent, completely self-dependent economy, inclusion of the disorganized sector, etc., and somewhat protecting them from no holds barred global competition.
Right.
And then there are people who believe in a hybrid model. And if you look at the current, I mean, if you read what Sanjeev Sanyal, for instance, member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, and a splendid author himself, he talks about the change from Keynesian to Quotidian economics,
right,
where the state is there, but state only intervenes when
it's a facilitator.
It's not just a facilitator. There are areas where it actually steps up and properly intervenes.
It becomes a player itself.
Yeah, it becomes a player itself, intervenes, etc. But then pulls back. It's not like the socialist or communist state.
Right.
But it's not a full-fledged capitalist, green Spanish entity.
Right.
So, you have different strands of economic thought within the so-called right. I mean, actually calling it right was, it was problematic.
But you dealt with it in the preface.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, then what do you call it?
Right.
You can't call it non-left. You can't define something. You shouldn't define something but by what it is not. Dharmic is too loaded a word. I mean, to call oneself dharmic is like taking on too much moral responsibility, which I am unwilling to.
You call themselves progressive, modern, things like that, and the other side regressive, obscurantist, bigoted, etc.
Which is why they are unelectable in most parts. I mean, almost across the world. So
this mix of ideologies that make India's new right, that also reminds me of a bite from Dattatreya Hosaboleji a couple of years ago, where he said, throughout the history of the RSS, it has been more left than right. He gave instances of economic thought, instances of cultural thought, political thought, etc. So that poses a question: how similar or how different was your line of thinking to the RSS line of thinking about this new kind of people?
I had no line of thinking.
Okay.
I approached the book as a journalist. It's not, in this book, you will not find one person's ideological standpoint or gyan.
Right.
This book brings together, I think that is one of its strengths. It brings together the points of view of so many people.
Right.
And they are so different, yet it could be, they are part of the same movement, if we may call it a movement.
Right.
Yes, that's.
It's more like you haven't imposed your way of thought. You have cited the different thought streams
I have
together, making a kind of river.
Exactly. Maybe the introduction has a bit of my it always whatever you do, write, create, whatever, it's somehow contaminated by your standpoints. Right. But I've kept it to the minimum, as any journalist should. So I've approached. I feel that my strength comes from about 30 years in journalism, and in journalism you're taught that you report what you see.
Right.
Of course, one could approach the subject from the standpoint of a commentator or an analyst, but I didn't do that. There are large swathes of reportage in this.
Right.
I traveled to the northeast, at least 3 states to the northeast, to the remotest corners of Manipur, Meghalaya, Assam.
Right.
And reported from there, met people there. Yes. I've traveled to Rajasthan. I've traveled to a bit in UP. I've traveled to Bengal and met people there. Tried to bring in even the the ambience there, the kind of trees, the kind of hills, etc. So that is.
So talking about the variety of people you have cited in your book, and especially some very prominent names on social media. We have journalist Swati Goyal Sharma. We have BJP spokesperson and IT cell head Amit Malviya. We have got Rahul Roshan, who has set up an alternative media by way of India.
Yeah.
Then we have Shefali Vaidya, who is an influencer and a supporter of BJP, if I may add to that.
You have Sai Deepak.
There is Anupam Kher.
There is Harikiran Vatlamani.
Right.
There are people like Devdutt Majhi, who's working absolutely on the ground, or Vinay Joshi. There are people who could not even be named. They didn't want to be named because they just facelessly work. So, there's Sanjeev Sanyal, of course, there is Harsh.
So, as I began, introducing this book and initiating this talk, I talked about this new kind of people who are the subject matter of your book, and we just named several of them. Do you think that, I'm just playing a devil's advocate. Do you think that they changed their colors on seeing Modi come to power, or they were always like that? They always thought what they think today?
One doesn't have to be unchangeable. To capture the time, you have to capture what those people are doing or saying at that point of time.
Right.
Some of the staunchest people on the right have been those who have been hardcore leftists when they were much younger.
Yes.
So, there would be opportunists, there would be very committed people, but who is to say that opportunists do not bring anything to the table?
Right. So, film stars, for example, if you talk about Anupam Kher, Kangana Ranaut, Akshay Kumar, Ajay Devgan, etc., their films, their body work before Modi came to power at the center, and their films right now, they tell two different stories. There was no such like pro-Hindu or pro-India orientation in their films earlier, which is like quite visible. That contrast is quite stark. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, but it is the same with even BJP politicians. If you look at extremely successful chief ministers like Himanta Biswa Sharma,
yes,
they come from a very, very different ideological net.
That's right.
Somebody who's right now chatting, Shubhendu Adhikari in Bengal, somebody who's chatting with me right now. You have been an active part of the India Against Corruption movement, and if I am right,
though
it wasn't, but that is the movement from which Aam Aadmi Party was born. But one would say that your writing, etc., is extremely right of center.
Right.
So this whole obsession, we shouldn't be obsessed with purity, unchangeability. In fact, those should be those could be problematic, and those could actually render a movement or an idea weak.
Right.
If this whole obsession with purity, just as this obsession with purity, bloodline, etc., renders a society, a nation, an idea weak.
Right. Finally, you have been a successful journalist for a pretty long time, 3 decades roughly, and even then, when you become an author, it is like on a different pedestal altogether. But as far as contribution to literature is concerned, or as far as making a mark in history is concerned, where do you see this book being considered in the scheme of things of history telling or things like that, or the political discourse of the country, let's say 10 years from now or 20 years from now, or in posterity, how will this book be valued?
One, I do not have any exalted ideas anymore of book writing. Almost everybody I know has a book. So, I don't know whether, book writing is the, gold standard of, intellectual output for a journalist or anybody. But having said that, I think this book will probably be treated as an eyewitness of history, eyewitness of this time.
Right.
Even 30 years, 40 years from now.
So,
it doesn't make any predictions or, in-depth analysis of what is happening, but it just captures this moment in time through its protagonists. Some of its protagonists, I've, missed out really, really important voices like, for instance, Vishnu Jain, who's fighting the cases in
to retrieve all the temples.
I've missed that out, and there's a chapter on minorities where I've captured voices. Of course, Asha Malik, Amana Ansari, Sinu Joseph, Zeba Zoraya, but there are so many others who are making. I would have ideally, if I could speak to Mr. Arif Muhammad Khan.
Right.
It would have, I would have loved to. But then again, there is only a limited section that you can interview. As I said, otherwise,
maybe in a new edition someday, or
500, 5,000, 50,000, but then, yes.
So there you had Abhijit Majumder, the author of India's New Right, and this is a book, as he says, and I have read it, he says it right, that this underscores the period that we are passing through. So in posterity, it will be remembered as a kind of a milestone, a kind of, if not in the literary sense, then in the sense of the political, cultural, social commentary of the time. So there you have it. Do read this book, India's New Right. And of course, there are several other things that could have been covered in the interview. For example, the making of this book and how he went on from one publisher, how that publisher let him down, and then he went on to a new one and all that. But what is most important is the content of this book. Go through the content and do not miss even the preface of it. Go through it page by page, chapter by chapter, passage by passage, and you will relate to what is written here. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Abhijit.
Thank you. So kind of you, Surajit, for giving me this time. Thanks.